Hello and welcome back to Pepptalks. We're back with a new episode alongside the Cyber Eagles. I
Hello,
am Andrew and I'm here with.
I'm Rin Catcher.
I'm Evan Johnson,
I'm Rowan Heisler.
and we are members of Team 10544, Cyber Eagle Silver.
Well, then, as a first question, I'm just wondering where and how did you find out about First and what inspired you to become a part of it?
I found out it's been about 4 years ago, the older Cyber Eagles team was doing an outreach event, and my grandma heard about it and thought I might be interested in that. So I joined the team and have not regretted it.
I found out about it 2 years ago, and it was my mom had worked with one of the people on Cyber Eagles Club.
I also found out about it 2 years ago, and my dad actually had a mutual friend of someone who was involved with the organization, and that's how I found out about it.
Oh, interesting. Well, how did you decide to create the team and what is the story behind it?
So we had started out as a school team, and I think that was in 2015 we started, was our first year. And I know there's some struggles with going to Worlds as a school team because we had got an invitation, but we had decided to break away and become a club team. And then we've continued as a club team, and we've expanded out into multiple Cyber Eagles team. We have five.
FTC and 5 FLL, I think.
Yeah. And so now we have 5 FTC teams when before we only had one.
5?
Yes.
Oh, wow, that's many teams. How do you manage to keep track of what happens in each team?
So the Cyber Eagles has become an association over the last few years because originally it was just one team, and now it's 5. So there's kind of a board of directors that manages all the team's funding and like events and stuff. So that's kind of how it's been going. Also, we've been mentoring the newer teams, and actually our competition was yesterday. All 5 of the teams got into the top 10. So I'd say we did a pretty good job.
And I heard that you mentioned something about FLL. Does your recruiting system start from teaching or introducing new students in FLL and then
Yeah.
rising in FTC?
Yeah.
We also hold coding camps. So we actually have some students that come in FLL that come from coding camps that we hold. And so, like last year, for example, we ran I think 3 or 4, something like that. 6, sorry. And and that's how some of our members come to be introduced. But we also have some people who go straight into FTC because they're too old for FLL.
Thank you. And now for a more technical question. Do you make any prototypes before starting to build the main robot? And if so, how many prototypes?
So in previous years we've done a lot more prototyping. This year we had started late because there was a little situation with our space. We didn't have a good space to work for first few weeks, so we were a little rushed and didn't do as much prototyping as we would have liked. Although we were still able to prototype some stuff on our robot. We tested some basic ideas to make sure they would work, like having a scissor linkage to drive an extension, having a claw on a lift. But so this year we've done about 1 or 2 prototypes for each aspect of our robot, I'd say.
You said you didn't have any space. You have your workshop in school, right? How is that for you to work in school?
We don't work in school. We used to be a school team, although we're not a school team anymore.
That was multiple years ago.
Yeah, we've been our club team in the community with our own space for a while, and yeah, we got a new space this year, and it's big enough for 2 teams, and so we'll have 2 FTC teams meet at a time, and that's where we do some mentoring on, because if we're meeting with one of our younger, newer rookie teams, we'll mentor them as we work on our robot in the same space. And at the start of the year, there was just some issues with trying to get the space workable. They were still building it for a while.
Well, I was wondering, what was your robot design process? Like all the steps you had to get through to get to the final version?
So we had an additional challenge aside from the robot. We didn't have a lot of funding this year because 5 teams in a new space. Our team wasn't able to get as much money as previous years. So we had to reuse quite a lot of parts. Our chassis, custom made from last year, we've reused that. It's been quite good. So we started with our intake mechanisms, testing out mounting the slides and testing different pieces of the intake with different materials, how they grab the samples. And then we did our slides systems and
Their vertical slides as well from last year.
also reused, yes.
So another thing that we do in our design process that's been pretty helpful is we do a lot of work in CAD programs. So we use Fusion 360. And last year we had our whole robot, we had made a mock-up of it in CAD. And that was really helpful in designing parts to fit on the robot because we already saw where all our slides and our motors were. So it was really easy to design pieces that fit around them. Also to help see what the robot would look like when it's all done. So that's something we've continued on to this year.
Okay, and for the next question, what was your robot design process? Like all the steps that you had to get through to get to the final version of the robot. I meant the CAD part and the other things.
Adding?
Yes.
Yeah, we designed some CAD prototypes of ideas, but usually they don't actually fit onto the robot. Like they're just to test the idea of is a spinning roller going to work well for an intake, or is a claw going to be able to pinch? So then once we've tested and we have the proof of concept that our idea works, then we go on to actually look at our robot and design something that'll fit onto it, put it on, get some testing with code, and then go from there. Do it again with some other parts, and then eventually we end up with a robot.
What
Yeah.
are your opinions on the theme of the game this year?
Game? I mean, it's finally a water game. There's no water, but it's kind of water game. I'll be honest, the field is a little bit bare. There's not a lot of robot contact aside from inside the submersible. So I guess it's kind of a break from other years where it's constantly running into each other, but it still feels a little bit empty.
Yeah, especially like center stage where you had the entire truss system and you'd have the robots going in and having to cross with each other all the time to be able to get to their respective corner, right? But now you just gotta. It's a lot easier just to stay on your side. So playing defense is a little bit more interesting than last year per se.
And would you say that's a good or bad change?
I mean, me personally, I'm a new driver this year. Our driver from last year, who was very experienced and very good at what he did, left. So he graduated, right. So, I mean, me personally, it is a lot easier to navigate, so I'm not complaining about that, but I would have liked there to be like a little bit more. It does feel, I agree with you guys saying it is a little bit bare.
Well then, about strategies, don't you think that having an offensive strategy will pay off more than having a defensive one?
I think yes, because I think most teams figured this out. The yellow samples are more than likely going to be what determines the game because they're limited, but both teams can score them. So if one team scores more than the other, then they have a higher chance that they'll win the game. So I think offensive strategies of going for the other teams and getting them as soon as possible in the submersible, I think will probably play a part in matches.
Especially if there's some in the submersible that are in really open spaces and are really easy to get to, you can grab that and score it very quickly, rather than if there's a sample at a harder place, you're gonna have to take more time getting to it, and so you'll waste time that way. Another strategy we had considered this was more for doing specimens, was to be able to hang specimens on the chambers out the front of our robot so that we can line up to grab a new sample as we're hanging a specimen. We had thought that it was little improvements and reducements in cycle time that were gonna kind of help determine the winner. Because if you can cycle 10 samples in the time your opponents can cycle 8, it'll add up to a lot of points over the course of a match.
Okay, and now a question about you as a team. How do you manage to organize everything? Do you have departments for technical and non-technical stuff? And how do you manage to work as a team together?
So in our team, we have like several different divisions that like each of us will like work on, and like one person can be on more than one. So we have a design team, we have a build team, a code team, and then a Marcom team.
It stands for marketing and outreach. It's some of the social media aspect, getting involved with the community, doing outreach.
And promoting you as a team, I suppose.
One of my questions is that I saw on your intake that you have a scissors-like extendo. Do you think there's a benefit to using that over just the Misumi or just normal sliders?
Well, for one, it's a lot easier to fix if it breaks. And also we found, so I can't really show you on here because it's hard to see, but these are actually powered by 2 axons. So they've actually been really reliable for extension. They've been quite fast and work quite well. So I don't think we really need to make them the complicated stringing mechanism because it's quite crammed in here. So I'm not sure if we'd be able to actually fit that. And also in the submersible, if it gets hit, I feel like it'd be
More durable?
more vulnerable. So yeah.
And you kept the design for with sliders on the outtake, from what I can see.
In the outtake?
No, what I mean the lift. Is it also with it is with sliders or something else?
Yeah. Our outtake does use stringing. It's powered by 2 motors, and we had reused our outtake from last year because it was about the same dimensions, and it was already put together really well. So because we were pressed on time, we thought that it would help us, time and money. It would help us save some resources and kind of get a working version of our robot up for our first competition.
It was also proven to work through our various competitions last year.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, then, what's your take on the hanging system? Because unlike the last season, there is the 3rd level, which kind of is somewhat of a headache.
Yeah, headache, huh? We don't have a hanging mechanism on ours, and we're still considering how we're going to do it. We think the best idea is to grab onto the first bar, pull up like a ½ inch, and then go straight up to the second bar, so you're not swinging around too much on the first bar. But we're yet to implement something to do that.
I mean, I feel like the second bar will end up being like the drone system for last year for us. So that was like one of the very last things that we worked on because the drone is only one element of the game, right? And it's in the end game. So it's going to be like one of the later things we work on.
The other thing we thought about the level 3 ascent was that it doesn't really seem like it's worth it all the time, because if you have a mechanism that can do it but it's really slow, you might be better off to just try and cycle 2 more samples, which actually gives 1 more point, and then you don't have to have a whole nother mechanism on your robot just to do it. So we thought that it's not really that rewarding for how difficult it can be. So we didn't focus on it at the start of our season.
Well, then, a level 3 ascension isn't that worth it, but a level 2 ascent still gives out 15 points. And
Yeah, 15 points. And I mean, if you can do it really fast, then that's a good 15 points for the last like 5 to 10 seconds of the game. And I mean,
yeah,
that could,
and also
yeah.
it's just like the last season's hang.
Hmm.
It's easy to do, in my opinion,
Yeah, second level is not too bad.
and it just 15 points guarantee.
We might be able to do a level 2 ascent with this robot, but we didn't have time to work out a way to implement it into our design. We were kind of scrambling to get ready for our first competition, although we're gonna look at refining some stuff for our second, and we'll probably find some way to do a level 2 ascent because it is pretty easy to do if you have a mechanism for it.
Well then, you've said you're 5 teams, and right now in your space you could work 2 teams at one time. How many hours per week do you work at the robot?
Usually about 6 to 8, but if it's weak during competition, like too many.
Yeah, I mean it really varies. Like for example, like we have a tendency to put in a lot of overtime hours. Like even if we didn't even plan on going overtime, sometimes we'll go like 30 minutes to an hour over just because we're just so focused.
I set a personal record on Friday, the day before the competition. Stayed up to about 1 o'clock doing driver practice, like 1 a.m. That was fun.
How
I
late?
think it was.
Till how late do you guys work?
Usually till about 9:30 at night, but
Yeah.
if we're doing overtime,
That's
maybe more.
that's also on school nights, so we kind of want to
Yeah.
we want to be home at around 10 o'clock so we can go to sleep, be ready for school.
We understand that since when we have our competitions, like the regionals or nationals, we also sleep in our labs or
Ah.
stay up late, even if it's a school night. I suppose that's the FTC experience. But another question that I'd have for you would be, what are 3 values you as a team are proposing to follow? Like some principles that you have built on to work together. That's a tough one.
I know one thing we've always tried to do with our team is make sure that anyone who wants to do something, if they want to do design work or if they want to learn code, that they have the opportunity to do that. And so we've been very lenient with letting a lot of newer students learn and develop those skills well on the team.
Another value that this Cyber Eagles team, I think for sure has, and is the reason we're one of the most successful teams in Alberta and Canada, is we don't strive way too far for the start of the season. So we don't go for the crazy world level robot off the start. That way we can just have a robot that works and we can build upon it into that world stage robot, and instead of having nothing for the first and second competition.
Do you
Thank
make
you.
yourself a timeline of events? Like, I don't know, till November you should have the first prototype, till December the second prototype, and well, and to the nationals, till nationals, the full robot.
Yeah, we just kind of like, we always have some sort of design that we know we can build upon, and we do that during our between competitions, and it's worked very well for us every single year.
How do you recruit team members?
So a lot of outreach projects, like the coding camps, are usually really good for recruiting FLL members, which will grow up into FTC. And there's other like trade fairs that we go to. We'll bring our robot.
Do you have some sort of activities or events, like workshops for kids in your community, where you can teach them coding or mechanical stuff? Do you have some sort of things?
Yeah. So we actually have these a lot of these like between 10 and 20 of them. We have like little Lego they're called spike bots, and
Yeah.
so we'll use them to actually like kind of it's like block coding, but it is still the very basics of coding, and we use that and we'll teach kids how to do it and let them kind of develop their skills, and that's kind of how they learn. And yeah, and it's and we also we'll give them like challenges, like little games and stuff to compete in, and it's always really fun.
Yeah, so we do that in little spaces in our community. Like we did a few at a library. We did one with the Girl Guides community in our community. It's with other various organizations. And one thing we did for the first time over the summer is we scaled it up into a longer program. So most of the coding camps we run are just 1 day things. They're about only a few hours long. So it's kind of hard to develop a lot of the finer, more technical skills about it because we have to spend so much time introducing them and getting them familiar with the program. So it doesn't actually leave that much time for coding. So we were counseling that, and it was based on the FLL game from last year, Masterpiece. So we spent first 2 days getting them familiar with the process of building an FLL robot, some of the coding, and then on the last 3 days we had them essentially work towards and then compete in the Masterpiece Challenge. And I think all the kids really enjoyed it, and we had one kid from the summer camp join on one of our FLL teams this year.
Thank you very much for being on our podcast and giving us the talk.
Absolutely.
And-
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
for inviting
personally, I'm very impressed with your work. I especially asked you about the activities with the children because I am into that department of teaching. And good luck in everything.
Yeah. Thank you. Good luck in your season.
Thank you very much.